Good morning. It's February 17th, and this is your daily brief in science. Here's everything you need to know. A large review of about 22 studies with nearly 2,000 adults asks whether intermittent fasting truly beats traditional dieting for weight loss or quality of life. The analysis finds little to no clear advantage for interval fasting overall, and it stresses the variation across methods such as 8-16, 5-2, and alternate day fasting, making it inappropriate to treat them as one approach. Experts caution against hype, noting current evidence shows signals rather than definitive proof of superiority for fasting. The report warns that certain groups should avoid or approach fasting cautiously, including pregnant or breastfeeding individuals, people with eating disorders, diabetes, or children, and it calls for more diverse and longer-term studies. Obesity is described as a chronic condition, with short-term trials providing limited guidance for long-term decisions and underscoring the need for more robust data. People should choose a fasting plan they can sustain long-term, ideally under medical guidance, rather than chase trendy hype. Physiological changes discussed include higher growth hormone, improved insulin dynamics, cellular repair processes, and potential gene expression shifts related to longevity and disease prevention. Weight loss remains the main strategy to reduce health risks tied to overweight and obesity, with cautious interpretation of general recommendations given the current evidence. Long-term effects and adherence beyond roughly 6 months to a year are not well established, and reported side effects vary and are not definitively characterized. The findings sit within a broader public health context, noting high rates of obesity and inactivity in populations like England's Health Survey data. Takeaways include ongoing debates about fasting's health impacts, mechanisms like autophagy and insulin sensitivity, and a call for higher quality, longer-term trials to clarify benefits and protocols. Limitations include inconsistent side effect reporting, small trials, short follow-up, and a participant pool largely white and from high-income countries, limiting generalizability. A cautionary note from the ice. Releasing ancient microbes or their genes could carry unknown risks, even as scientists see potential in new antibiotics and industrial enzymes. In Frontiers in Microbiology, researchers sequenced the Scarasora ice cave Psychrobacter SC65A 3 genome to map cold adaptation and antimicrobial resistance traits and tested resistance against 28 antibiotics across 10 classes. The study analyzes a 13,000-year ice core timeline with sterile handling to minimize contamination, offering a long view of how resistance traits can evolve and persist in ancient microbes. SC65A3 inhibited 14 ESKAPE pathogens, including MRSA and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, while genomic data suggested production of antimicrobial compounds such as glycopeptides and bacitracin. This polyextremophile grows up to about 15 degrees Celsius and endures high salinity and magnesium, illustrating cold-adapted extrema tolerance. Whole genome sequencing revealed more than 100 antimicrobial resistance genes, including AMPC, GIRAB, PARCE, DFRA, RPOB, TET-AC, and MCR1, along with heavy metal resistance and efflux genes. An ancient 5,000-year-old Psychrobacter SC65A3 from Scarasora ice cave shows resistance to 10 modern antibiotics, including rifamycin, vancomycin, and ciprofloxacin. SC65A3 is the first Psychrobacter strain reported to resist trimethoprim, clindamycin, and metronidazole, antibiotics used for UTIs and various infections. Functional assays show resistance to 10 antibiotics across 8 classes, including third-generation cephalosporins and fluoroquinolones, with broad hydrolytic activity. The genome contains 45 stress response genes related to cold and heat adaptation, including unique HTPX, HTPG, and pKa variants linked to cold adaptation. The strain not only resists multiple antibiotics but also inhibits growth of several antibiotic-resistant pathogens and harbors enzymes with potential for new antimicrobials or industrial uses. Genome analysis reveals nearly 600 genes of unknown function and over 100 antibiotic resistance genes, with 11 genes potentially capable of inhibiting microbes, fungi, or viruses. A cross-border carbon capture plan in Malaysia is drawing intense scrutiny as critics call it expensive, unproven at scale, and potentially a distraction from expanding renewables. They warn the scheme could turn Malaysia into a dumping ground for industrial pollution, delaying broader climate action and exporting emissions to a developing country. Authorities say they will monitor leaks and acknowledge cross-border storage could set a precedent for neighbors like Indonesia and Thailand, even as IEA projections place carbon capture as a small contributor to emissions reductions by 2050. Malaysia has passed legislation to promote the CCUS industry, with projections of up to $250 billion in economic impact over 30 years, though many details remain unspecified. Japan plans to ship emissions from heavy polluters to Malaysia for cross-border carbon capture, aiming to bury CO2 offshore within a few years, and positioning Malaysia as Southeast Asia's CCS hub with storage projects led by Petronas. Malaysia positions itself as a regional CCS hub, led by Petronas, and backed by a major offshore storage facility and a projected economic boost, though specifics on implementation are sparse. The process envisions capturing emissions at sources like refineries or power plants, separating CO2, liquefying and shipping it, then injecting it into offshore storage sites off Sarawak. Supporters, including fossil fuel interests and some policymakers, describe CCUS as a necessary bridge to cleaner energy and a way to buy time for broader transitions. The debate sits within broader international dynamics and national approaches to reducing industrial emissions, with carbon capture's role remaining contested. Japan's role as a top global emitter draws international scrutiny over its climate policy and the implications of its CCS program, while the European Union and Norway pursue CCUS facilities, and the IEA projects CCUS contributing less than 5% of emission reductions by 2050. Doubts about CCUS persist, with forecasts suggesting limited near-term impact even as regions pursue offshore storage and pilots. A single intravenous dose of DMT given over about 10 minutes with psychotherapeutic support produced rapid and sustained reductions in depressive symptoms for people with treatment-resistant depression, with benefits lasting from 2 weeks up to 6 months. In participants with moderate to severe depression, the DMT group improved on average 7.4 points more than placebo at 2 weeks, and effects persisted for months, with some maintaining gains for half a year. The open-label phase suggests antidepressant effects appeared as early as 1 week and continued through 12 weeks, with a 2-week between-group effect size similar to other psychedelic trials like psilocybin. Experts caution that placebo responses and participant expectations may influence psychedelic study outcomes, underscoring careful preparation, monitoring, and follow-up in future work. Researchers noted that mystical-type experiences during DMT sessions, including feelings of unity and positive emotional shifts, were linked to greater therapeutic gains. Broader trials are planned to test longer-acting DMT formulations and other psychedelic approaches, even as regulatory signals in the United States create a mix for development. If approved in the United Kingdom, psychedelic treatments for depression would likely be offered mainly through private clinics, with safety and equity concerns addressed by rollout guidelines. Side effects were generally mild to moderate, including injection site pain, nausea, temporary anxiety, and occasional headaches. Mechanistically, DMT may trigger temporary neuroplastic or anti-inflammatory effects, though the exact pathways remain unclear within the broader psychedelic-assisted depression research. Experts say psychedelics may work by enhancing psychotherapy and disrupting entrenched thinking, creating a cognitive landscape for new patterns to form. The study places DMT within a broader psychedelic research agenda, noting parallels with psilocybin and other compounds, and signaling ongoing development of related agents for treatment-resistant conditions. DMT's short duration, about 25 minutes, could offer logistical advantages over longer psychedelics, potentially enabling shorter, more scalable therapy sessions. A field trip into the world of fungi reveals a community of amateur mycologists and citizen scientists, including groups like the California Lichen Society, who help document diversity, discover rare species, and guide conservation priorities through fieldwork and data collection. Fungi are essential as decomposers, food sources, medicines, and players in carbon storage, with an estimated 2.5 million species and a global economic contribution around $54 trillion. A growing network of scientists and enthusiasts is elevating fungi conservation, underscoring their ecological and economic importance despite historical neglect. In the United States, conservation efforts are shifting, drawing on broader biodiversity programs and precedents like the Northwest Forest Plan, which linked protecting dependent species to safeguarding whole ecosystems. The article calls for ongoing funding, research, and policy attention to protect a largely unseen but foundational kingdom of life. A California field study highlights the challenges and rewards of searching for rare species, such as the Manzanita butterclump, illustrating discovery, uncertainty, and the resilience required in mycological work. Historical context shows how the 1990s Northwest Forest Plan connected forest ecosystem protection to preserving fungi and other dependent species. Even when a specific target, like the Manzanita butterclump, isn't found, researchers note that fieldwork is inherently uncertain and that exploration advances knowledge and awareness of fungal diversity. The closing point emphasizes that, despite not locating the clump, the day demonstrates the value and enjoyment of fieldwork in advancing fungal science and conservation. Experts point out that much of fungal life remains hidden in mycelial networks, with mushrooms appearing only under certain conditions, making long-term monitoring and field observation essential. Across the United States, fungal conservation lags behind other regions, with only 2 fungal species protected under the Endangered Species Act, though momentum grows through community science projects and state protections. Globally, the IUCN Red List shows 411 of 1,300 evaluated species are threatened, with protections still expanding slowly in the United States through state and federal actions. This has been your Daily Brief in Science. To read more about these stories, follow the links in the episode bio. You can also subscribe to these updates via email at www.brief.news. For more daily podcasts about the topics you love, visit brief.news/podcasts. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be back with everything you need to know.